In my last video, I pointed out a few things about the recent ICE protests and enforcement that just really didn't seem quite right to me. Then, lucky me, a few hours later a new set of documents dropped. It wasn't just screenshots or leaked Telegram chats. It was back-end tools and dashboards, and structured data that doesn't seem to have been publicly available until now. And once you see it all laid out, it really changes everything. I'm not going to just dump a bunch of raw data and say I'm right. I'm going to walk you through the system, how the information moves, and how it shapes what happens on the ground. And once you can see through the smoke and mirrors and understand the system beneath it all, a whole lot more of this starts to make sense. Now let's set some framework about what this video isn't. This video is not a direct accusation. I'm not here to point fingers. This isn't some document dump that you need to spend hours digging through. I've already done that for you. This video is about understanding the structure behind the movement. It's that structure that determines the outcomes, not the individuals involved. When situations escalate quickly, it's not about who showed up. It's more about how they got there and how they got there so fast. Once you understand that structure, everything else in this video begins to click into place. Here's what actually matters. Speed is what changes behavior. Over the last few months, we've seen ICE enforcement and protesters clash with seemingly random rapid response groups that happen to show up right on time. In the media, most of this gets framed as just observation, just people watching and documenting what's happening. But here's the key distinction. Observation is passive, coordination is not. Once information starts moving fast enough to coordinate groups and mobilize in real time, now you've entered a completely different category. And the difference isn't in the ideology. The difference is in the structure that's supporting that ideology. And this is where everything changes. What immediately stood out to me wasn't the rhetoric or the ideology. It was the actual depth of the organization taking place. These weren't just informational group chats. It had organization, roles, dispatchers, patrols, routes, shift-style participation. That isn't accidental. It's all by design, and once you can see that, the rest of this starts to make sense. Once you introduce dispatch roles and routing, you've entered different territory. Not morally necessarily, but definitely structurally. You've gone from individuals reacting independently or in small groups to people being redirected with a purpose. And once that starts to happen, you start to move on from organic outcomes, even if that's how this all started. The systems don't need bad intentions in order to create dangerous momentum. They just need speed. Now, data is the driving force behind scale and scaling fast. And in this system, the material is categorized, labeled, sorted, and searchable. Categories for ICE vehicles include things like validated, suspected, unconfirmed. And when those labels are used internally, data that may not be concrete seems to feel a whole lot more real to the people involved. Every new entry seems to reinforce the previous one. Speed of action goes up and doubt goes down. And unfortunately for everybody, once the mistakes start to happen, they don't stay compartmentalized. The system actually spreads them. Once you understand the structure, it becomes clear that a lot of things that appear spontaneous and organic on the surface really aren't. On the ground, these scenes look chaotic. Large groups of people showing up, emotionally charged, with an atmosphere of confusion and unrest. But it appears that way because typically we're only shown the last 30 seconds of a confrontation. What we don't see are the 30 minutes prior to that, behind the scenes, the alerts, the coordination, the movement, the escalation. That's how bystanders get pulled in and exactly how misunderstandings multiply. That's how a seemingly calm situation can become volatile faster than anybody expects it. Because at that point, the individuals aren't reacting to a single event occurring on the ground. They're reacting to a system that's been put in motion for a purpose. So this is typically the part where people want names. They think names are the perfect place to direct their anger. But I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to do that. If you remember one thing, remember this. Systems shift responsibility. Now that doesn't remove personal accountability, but it does kind of show you where it actually starts. Once the system exists, responsibility moves away from the individuals participating and more towards those who design, maintain, and control the system. You can have well-meaning people inside a flawed system and still wind up with dangerous outcomes. Accountability isn't about motive. It's about the architect behind the structure driving the movement forward. Okay, so why does this all matter going forward? Well, it isn't going to stay local. There's nothing about this structure that's unique to a single city, region, or even issue. It's now been successfully demonstrated and is easily replicable. A lot of people see technology as a blessing and a curse, but one thing that it does is it definitely lowers the bar to entry on coordination nationwide. This means faster responses, larger crowds, and with that, less margin for error on both sides. You don't need the individuals on the ground to necessarily have bad intentions for bad outcomes. You just need speed, pressure, and the machine being directed by whoever controls it. If there's one thing to take away from this all, it's this. The outcomes are shaped far before the people show up in the streets. The outcomes are shaped by systems, and by the people who control those systems and decide how to use them. So before you take a side or react to the next viral clip that's been carefully tailored to elicit a certain emotion from you, ask yourself this one question. What system is already in play here? In the next video, we're going to look directly at that control layer. Who creates the systems? Who controls them? And where the responsibility sits when things go off the rails. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want that follow-up that digs into control, oversight, and accountability, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because that's where this is going next. That's the conversation that we actually need to be having.